Blog Talk Radio.
Hello? Just lost it. Welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. My name is Dr. Michael Rice, and our conversation today is about the internal process of forgiveness. Dr. Hayes, are you with us, Tim, this morning?
I can't answer until I get them turned on.
Oh, excuse me. I guess Jeannie is having a little bit of technical difficulty getting onto the line, and so with that difficulty, it's going to take a minute for her to get our other callers clicked into the show. But anyway, welcome. We're out here in sunny Pahrump, Nevada. Gorgeous day. It is probably about 75 degrees, sunshine, blue skies, absolutely beautiful. And, of course, we're here to talk about the ancient Aramaic process of forgiveness. Not the process of letting other people off the hook for what's happening inside of you, not the Greek idea of forgiveness, but rather the ancient Aramaic idea of forgiveness, which has nothing to do with letting other people off the hook because there's some form of pain or turmoil inside yourself, but rather we're introducing an ancient new concept, and that is that if you have pain or turmoil inside of you, there is technology called forgiveness with which you can go inside yourself and remove that pain. And so our process here is one of how to go inside yourself, and we're here to create support for you learning that tool. And a whole series of tools that we have for understanding the forgiveness process and getting to the other side of any form of hostility, fear, turmoil, trauma, drama that might be going on in your life. And, of course, most of the world thinks, well, but that's just the way life is. Trauma, drama, fear, rage, grief, pain. That's just the way it is. It happens that way, and there's not much you can do about it. Well, we're here to support you in knowing there is absolutely a reliable, systematic way of removing everything inside of you that is unlike love, of removing every experience based in any form of hostility or fear, and coming out the other side in human form. And human form, it's really easy to determine what a human being is. All you have to do is hold a newborn, and you know what human life is about. And our offering is that it is your birthright to live a human life. That is to live 24/7, 365 as the active presence of love. And the only thing that will ever prevent you from doing that is what's going on inside of you. Now, most people want to point the finger and say, no, I'm only angry because of what Joe did. I'm only sad because of what Harry did. I'm only. And, you know, kind of one of my tongue-in-cheek lines I love to deliver in our Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshops is a line that says, well, you'll notice if you've been through a particular painful reality 87 different times with 42 different people, that you're the only one that was there every time. That means it's about you, it's not about them. And you say, but Michael, they have a problem. And you know something? In most cases, you're right, they have a problem. But that's their problem. If you're in pain or turmoil, you have a problem. Most of the world is caught up in trying to take the log out of their brother's eye while they leave the beam, the huge blockage in their own eye, in place. And so we're here to reverse that process. We're here to give you a tool with which to go inside yourself and remove what never belonged. And as you remove what never belonged, you're free of it. You know, if they're the one with the problem, of course, the question becomes, why am I the one with the pain? If they're the one with the problem, logically they'd be the one with the pain. If I'm the one with the problem, obviously, if I'm the one with the pain, obviously I'm the one with the problem. So now we have two people who have a problem. Can I change their problem? No. Can they change mine? No. Will their behavior change what's going on inside of me by them changing their behavior and obeying my every command? No. All it will do is allow me to hide from myself. And so what we're looking to do is how to uncover the part of me that keeps me in any form of pain or turmoil and to wake up. And Jeannie has a comment for us.
Someone wants you to explain what tongue-in-cheek means.
Tongue-in-cheek. Well, it's an idiom in the English language. Tongue-in-cheek means kind of presenting something in a joking way that speaks of something serious. And so the tongue-in-cheek line of they're the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain, is one of those lines that points us back to ourselves and back to what we need to deal with. So it's just an idiom, a way of saying we're going to present it in a little different form than the normal literal form. And so welcome to the show. We're delighted that everybody's here. Ginny, do we have any comments in the chat room or anybody on the phone to ask questions?
No, nobody's asking questions. We do have David and Tim both turned on right now. So.
Oh, cool. Well, good morning, David and Tim. How do you both be this morning?
Doing quite well. Enjoying the mild weather and sunshine here in Illinois.
Awesome. And David, how do you be this morning?
I'm doing fabulous. The rain has stopped for the time being anyway, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous day here as well. And things are just moving along.
Cool. Well, we actually had phone calls from several people who were concerned about Heartland being in the area. We're about 3 hours actually from Joplin, where that tornado went through. Fortunately, where we are, we've been saturated with rain in the Ozarks over the last several weeks, but we're at about 800 feet above the lake, and in order for floodwaters to get to us, we'd have to have the whole lower states all the way down to the Gulf and the Gulf of Mexico fill up with water and rise about 800 feet to get to us. So we're in a pretty secure place there. And then fortunately we're in the what they call the Ozark Mountains, but it's really the Ozark Hills, and those hills tend to break up any kinds of winds that could actually form a tornado. So thank you, God, we're in a relatively safe place there. But our hearts certainly go out to the folks in Joplin, in that area that were hit so hard. I know that one of our close associates who runs a support group out in Washington State, and if you happen to be listening, Sandra, we certainly embrace you in our hearts, but she's from Joplin, and so she wasn't sure just what the status was of the many friends and family members that were in Joplin with what happened there. So we certainly embrace that whole community and the individuals in it and the friends and family of those near and far that are impacted by that anomaly in the weather. It's interesting. I was reading an article the other day that said that the weather patterns have not in 500 years of recorded history ever come close to these kinds of traumatic events. And you know, when you start recognizing that we are part of an energy system, this ties right in with the work, and it's one of the things that inspires us to do the work that we do. If we listen to Einstein, based on his knowledge of physics, says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. So now we've established all of we humans are actually one being. We are cells in one body. And then when you recognize that you take that to the next level, we are part of the structure, the energetic structure called the Earth. There are no edges between us and the Earth. We're part of an energy system. And we as human beings need to take responsibility for what we put into this energy system. And I think that part of why the Earth is going through such throes and such traumas, it's very much like a so-called physical body, an energy system into which there's all kinds of toxicity and fear integrated. What happens is that body, or what we call a body, that body will start to try to throw that off. So there'll be things like sores and blisters and flus and colds and phlegm and, eruptions in the skin, and all of those things are the structure's effort to throw off what does not belong. And I'd offer that introduced to the earth was this awesome being called love, human life. And if you listen to the creation story of this culture, it says that we were given dominion over it. That didn't mean we were put here to subdue and destroy the earth. It meant that we were given a very powerful part in the process, and that was the ability to introduce new information and new energy into the system. When it says, go forth and multiply and replenish the face of the earth, in Aramaic, most everybody listened to the multiply part, but they didn't do much with the replenishing. And that word in Aramaic speaks of bring to completion. And we are part of the cutting edge of creation. And we're designed to function as human beings, as love. When we are reduced to functioning out of hostility and fear, that door's open. When we are reduced to functioning out of hostility or fear, then what we're injecting into this system is a poison. And I believe that in my understanding of this earth energy system is that what the earth is trying to do is to cleanse itself. And interestingly enough, if you look at two sources of people who were able to tap into the earth's energy field and what was going on, in the Tibetan culture, the Tibetans have a prophecy that says when you go to the land of the red man, that will be the time of the great purification. And it's just the last few decades that the Tibetan lamas have come to the Western world, have come to America. And there's an interesting corresponding prophecy out of the Hopi tradition. And the Hopi elders said, and this is centuries ago, said when the man with the red hat comes to your land, that will be the time of the great purification. How did these people know? Because when things are structured into the energy system, if you're out of the process of denial, you can tap into that energy system. And so here we have the man with the red hat, the Tibetan Lama, classically wears a red hat, and here the Lamas are in the land of the red man. And the earth is cleansing itself. The earth is saying, you've put enough garbage in here. I don't need this rage and hatred and vengeance and war and fear. There's a thing in physics where they speak about the fact that the flapping of a butterfly's wing in Japan can create a hurricane on the other side of the world. And what they're saying is that there are small initial causes that produce huge effects in the energy system. Let's think about this for a second. I believe the numbers, and I read this recently, but my numbers might be off, but they're not far off. I believe that we have in the Earth's atmosphere in the last 60 years set off approximately 4,000 Hiroshima-size bombs. Now, if a butterfly's wing, as an initial condition, can create such an effect in the atmosphere as they say it does, what do you suppose 4,000 Hiroshima-style or size bombs is going to do to the energy system? Some folks who study these things say that there are approximately 60 million cases of cancer as a result of that. People are saying, well, why is there so much cancer? Well, let's start to look at what we're doing to the energy system. The people who study murder tell us that there have been approximately in history 200 million murders that are documentable. In the last century, human beings have committed 130 million acts of murder that we can document. What do you suppose the pain, the turmoil, the trauma, the loss of 130 million lives unnecessarily lost over human hostility and fear? What do you suppose that sets up as an initial action in the energy system? Well, now somebody may say I'm kind of crazy, and that's okay, but I'd offer that it's going to set up some traumatic energy waves in the system. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if a tsunami, if a hurricane, if the kinds of winds that we've been hearing about and seeing are all a result of those initial events, those initiating events. When I look as I travel around the country and I watch people, and these are the people that are still alive, and the families that I work within that are in rage and grief and, abuse, children being physically, emotionally, psychologically, sexually abused, parents raging at each other, murdering each other, employers driving employees into the ground, politicians robbing while they present themselves as so holier than thou, in bed with anything they can get in bed with, and I don't care whether it's male or female, and robbing people of millions of dollars. Excuse me, this is an energy system that says, ouch. And on an individual level, if I put something into my structure that doesn't belong, my structure says, ouch. If I never remove that initial condition from my structure, then I pass it to my next generation. And if they never learn how to remove those things from their structure, they pass it to their next generation. And if that generation never learns to remove those things, then they pass it to the next generation. In the ancient teachings, they said people wandered in the desert for 40 years until the previous generations died off. They weren't speaking about people in old physical bodies. They were talking about these initial conditions, the flapping of a butterfly's wing that creates all kinds of effects. And our words, our thoughts, is those that are here to replenish, that is to carry forward the creation. It was designed to be done with the active presence of a human life. It was designed to be done out of love. Where is it gone? Why is the earth in trauma? I offer the theory, and I might be wrong, and that's okay. Here's my thought, though, for somebody who would say, oh, that's crazy, you're nuts, Rice. Okay, I'll tell you what. If I'm in error, I promise you it won't cost you a penny, and it won't damage anything in one iota to understand it and function as though it were true. It won't cost anybody anything, except that they'll get to move toward love in their lives. There'll be nothing but benefit. If I'm correct, and you refuse the understanding, and you refuse to take responsibility for your part in the system, then the impact is nothing short of the destruction of the planet. And so I invite you to consider, what kind of things are you putting into the energy system on a daily basis? You have an antenna, literally, into which you put in either human life, the presence of the active love of God, the newborn energy, or you put in the insanity of the culture. I offer you inject that directly into the Earth's energy field. You inject it directly into your genetics. You inject it directly into your family system. What are you doing? And are you willing to take the time to develop the skills to become aware of how the energy system works? And your part in it. And if you're off base, it doesn't mean you're bad or you're wrong or you're evil or you're nasty or anything. It just means, hey, have a look and make some changes. That's all. It's just have a look and make some changes. So, Jeannie, do you have any questions on the phone or in the chat room that I would do well to pay attention to?
No, not really. There was Sam made a comment, though, that, let me move this down so I can read it. She says, I apologize here. It's the way that it scrolls in the chat room. You were talking about people saying you're crazy, and she says, I'm hearing on a daily basis that I'm crazy, Michael, so we are in a great club together.
Well, Sam, I delight in being in the club with you and Tim and David and Jeannie, and let's all be crazy together. But I'll tell you what, this craziness is the most sane craziness I've ever seen on the planet when we take responsibility. And, sitting around to figure out whether it's true or not, we're at the stage in the destructive forces on the planet where this game may end any time. Now, fortunately, it didn't end last Saturday. Somebody had this prediction that it was all over. I think that if you look at the 2012 prediction of the Mayans, it had nothing to do with the end of a physical planet, but it did have to do with the shift in energy. And the shift in energy is from power and control to integrity and ethics. That's the new energy that's coming, and that's the new world that's coming into order. And the critical mass, I was speaking to someone just the other day, and she had gone to see it, Jeannie and my suggestion, the film I Am. And her son went with her. Her son is, I think, 13. And she shared with me, and I don't know, she might happen to be on the line, and if she is, please call in and say hello to us and share a little bit about that. But the week before she shared with me, before she went to that film, she shared with me that she had been wondering, contemplating out of the work she's done with these tools, what can I do? And one of the things she decided to do was to make up some little cards. And the cards were a handwritten note to people she didn't know saying, did you know who you are, that you are loved and that you are loved? And just giving messages like that. And what she would do when she would go to the mall is she'd go around and put them under the windshield wipers of cars. And when she went to see the film I Am, which is an awesome film that really needs support in our world right now, get out there and go see that film and comment about it online and get people going to see it. It's awesomely powerful. But what she did while her 13-year-old son stood by and thought she was nuts, she stood at the door of the theater, and everybody that came out of the theater, she hugged them and said, I love you. What could we be doing? What a simple act of kindness. There's a bumper sticker out there that says something about senseless acts of beauty. There is no senseless act of beauty. Every act of beauty, every act that comes from our being is a sensible act that serves all of life. And if you look into the Aramaic Beatitudes, the Beatitude that speaks about classically is translated as, blessed are the peacemakers, for theirs is the kingdom of God. What it says in Aramaic is, a latent neural structure implanted in you by God to lead you to happiness and well-being becomes your conscious possession. You who, through service, function to bring forward the peace and understanding that is under and in accord with the Creator's will, with love's will. That's what that Beatitude says in Aramaic. And then it says that's what puts us in the stead of being the offspring of love, children of the Creator. And we can work as children of the culture too. And if you take a look around at the culture, it gets crazier and crazier every day. And fortunately, we get the privilege of being part of the process of making it saner and saner every day. And I acknowledge everybody who's listening, and I acknowledge you, David, for your contribution and your willingness and your work to carry it forward on the planet. I acknowledge you, Dr. Tim. I don't know if Terry's there. He was talking about trying to get on the show today, but if you're there, the awesome work that you're doing in your own life, in your own family system, is just so empowering and is moving things forward. And Jeannie, the dedication, and nobody will ever know the hours, the work, and the integrity that you've put in to bringing this forward to the planet. I acknowledge you for that, and thank you from the depth of my being.
You are more than welcome. You just kind of faded out there after you said that. So One of the things that Sam just put on the website was the CDC states that 85% of the disease is caused by emotions, and that's quoted by Dr. McCullough. And she says many people are going to be upset reading that post.
Well, and if you're upset, notice that you're causing a disease process in your body. Get some tools. Get to the website. Go to www.whyagain.com, and on the right-hand side, there's a link that Jeannie's put there that says download worksheets. Download the first two links under that section. The first one is an explanation of how to do the forgiveness process. The second one is the worksheet, the actual Aramaic forgiveness process. Start to put the pen to the paper. Are you capable of some form of hostility or fear? Then you are part of the problem on the planet. You are the problem in your body. There is only one problem in your world, and you're it. There's only one problem in my world, and I'm it. And when I learn that, and I start to acquire the skills and the tools of shifting and changing that, guess what happens? Things shift and change. There's something we can do about it. That's why the title of that book is Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And what you can do about it. We are not powerless. The message of the world is we are powerless. You are not powerless. You are one who has as much power as any human being that has ever existed has had. And I mean up to and including the man called Yeshua himself. If you remember, he says, the things I do, you can do and greater. What makes you think that's not true? Because you've come from a power structure that says you can't do it, you don't count. There's only one of you. What could you possibly do? Excuse me. You can change the world. And that's what we're here to support and join each other in doing. That's the idea of Mind Shifters Radio. Remember that ancient teaching that said, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. That's what mind shifting is about, is shifting out of. You know, we're looking to convert you. And the world calls conversion bringing somebody into their church. Thank you, that's not what we're interested in. Conversion means taking someone who's in an hostility and fear-based mind and supporting them converting their own structure to a human structure, to a love-based structure. Because that's your birthright. That's what you're designed to live out of.
Michael,
So
the key for me in what you're saying is not the fear of all the horrible things that are happening on the planet and all the negative, but the fact that I have the infinite capacity to choose the focus of my conscious awareness in each moment, and that creates my experience, and that gives me the opportunity to experience my source as love.
Absolutely. I'm 100% with you, sir.
And so
right on track.
If I keep my focus on that, if I do my practice of vigilance about anything in my thought or emotions that comes up that's less than love, and I work to dismantle that and restore my focus of awareness to my source as love, then I have done all that I ever imagined I would be able to do for the entire world. Since
yes.
The world I see is coming from inside me.
That's it. Every reality reflects the content of my mind before it reflects what's going on in the world. So in my mind, if there's some form of hostility or fear, and that's an awesome way to say it, Dr. Tim, of being vigilant about where you allow your mind to go. And being, when we are open, that if there's some form of hostility or fear in there, that we're willing to own that and to move through it. Rather than pretending that there's nothing in there to deal with. Most people, when they're first introduced to this work, we're out here working with a medical doctor, Dr. Stephen Andraki, and we've had 100 joking conversations we've been here with each patient that he introduces the tools to, and he says, well, tell me, what are the issues in your life? Oh, I don't have any issues. Everything's fine. And after 2 minutes of conversation, they're, almost on the floor in tears. Because we all carry around such things inside of us as never should have been put into a human life to begin with. Jeannie, comments, questions in the chat room or calls on the phone? If you have a call, we would love to hear from you, 646-200-4169. One of the things that really adds spice and I think another level of aliveness to the show is when somebody calls in with some genuine question about any aspect of the work or disagreement with the work, and or calls in with something to share about how the work has impacted you. The area that you've changed your life in, even if it seems like a small thing, may be the monster looming in somebody else's face. And when you put out, well, here's what I did and here's how it shifted, your sharing that might be the thing that opens a space for someone to make a major, major breakthrough in their lives.
Michael?
And you're all appreciated. Yes, Jenny.
Okay, we do have a caller with their hand up. We have a lot of people listening on the switchboard today, and so if any of you want to make a comment, press 1, and it will let me know that you want to speak, and I can turn you on. And then also just to let you know, we have Rob listening online, and he says that he's looking forward to seeing us in Medford, Oregon in June. And so just wanted you to know that he is out there listening. Yes, great. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the caller. Number 541, you're on the air.
Is that
Hello,
me?
area code 441. You want to give us a name and where are you calling from?
Okay, my name's Julie.
Oh, Julie.
Hi. I have a question about grief. How do you help people through grief when they've lost a loved one and they went through a lot of anger and frustration and having to care for them towards the end, and just all of those emotions stirred up, and now the family is left with all the other stuff that stirred up about guilt and quibbling and just so much stuff. How do people work through that when it's really up for them like that?
Well, I hear you loud and clear, and I'm delighted that the Medford contingent is with us, and Julie is from up in Ashland, and actually just introduced us to Rob. And Rob, maybe if you feel inclined, you could also give a quick call in and just say a little bit about what's happening there at Unity and what you're doing and how we're going to move forward with the work and taking it there. But Julie, if we were in an intensive workshop right now, I'd be turning around with my whiteboard marker in hand, and I'd be writing at the top of the board all of the above. And that is that we would suggest in that type of a difficult situation, and there's we honor and empathize with the difficulty of that, but the difficulty is one of falsehood. And so we would offer the person that's in that space the tool of forgiveness. We'd offer them the tool of still point breathing. We'd offer them the tool of responsibility communication. We'd offer them the codependence tool. Every tool would be useful in that situation. Let me share a situation that actually we just were in Florida just before we came back out to Las Vegas about 5 or 6 weeks ago. And I used to have a private practice in South Florida. And there was a woman there who was in her early 60s when she started to work with me. This goes back 30 years ago now. And in her family system, she'd been brought up in a pretty strict home, and her parents were in their 90s, and her father was ill and imminently dying. And in her family system, to use the word death was not allowed. You weren't allowed to speak of it. And so she did some work in our private session time. She did some really powerful work around death and the fact that that was a conversation that wasn't allowed in their family system. After doing this significant amount of work, she went home and with her 90-year-old parents started to speak about father's imminent passing. And there was an upheaval in that household of rage and upset. And she just held the space and moved through it. One of the things she shared with me was that this woman in her early 60s, as a result of her becoming brave enough to bring up the conversation of death, heard her father, for the first time in her life, say the words to her, "I love you."
Wow.
The family processed through this whole issue of death and all the terror and all the trauma and the fear they had around it. And she shared with me then that her two children, I spoke earlier about the call we got about the tornadoes and such. One of the people that called was her daughter, who I started to work with back when she was about 13. She's now has two children. I've worked with 3 generations of this family. And she said, I heard my father say the words, "I love you," and her 2 small children, her brother and she, and her mother, were joined hands around her father's bedside as he passed. And she said it was one of the most powerful, joyful family moments they had ever had together. Now, was there some sorrow and loss involved? Yes. But the experience of his passing was a loving, powerful experience for these 3 generations gathered. As it turns out, I reconnected with the family when we were in Florida back in January. And this woman who was in her early 60s, 30 years ago when I started to work with her, is now 94. She's in a nursing home, and her family is dealing with her healing process and whether or not she's getting ready to pass. And we had spent quite a bit of time together and working with Mom, who's now 93 or 94, and kind of frail. And instead of the children being in terror and trauma about Mom's passing, they're in a space of love. They're there for her every day, supporting her and nurturing her and loving her and caring for her and giving her permission that when and if it's time to go, it's okay.
That's great.
Now, you don't do that if you come from a family system of death and disease or drama and trauma, you don't do that in just it's not a simple ABC kind of thing. But that's what's possible when one does all of the above and does their work. So I started to work. Yeah, I started to work with this woman when she was in her early 60s. Her daughter was about 10 when I started to work with her first. Or the grandchildren were at 9 and 10 when I first started to work with them. And it was just, it's awesome to watch this family system and what they're doing. But without tools, there's a section in the front of my book called Life Without Tools, and one of the first things in it is life without tools is hell.
Yeah.
Life with tools, whatever we're facing, is a connection to love and maintaining a human life in the presence of whatever goes on. And it transforms everything.
That's well said. I like how you said that. Yeah. Thank you. I will pass it on.
I am looking forward to getting up to Medford and bringing these tools into that whole community and sharing them with the whole community from Medford all up into Ashland and the whole surrounding area, and bringing forward another level of support for the healing process of people that I know that Unity in Medford and Unity in Ashland are about supporting people. It's a different kind of a church. And that is, rather than being about the fear-based theologies that tend to run the planet, they're about human life and supporting people in functioning as love in the world. And it's such an awesome gift, but it's interesting that the kind of things that those who are living in hostility or fear, like, well, wait a minute, we talk about this love stuff, but don't tell me you're going to actually do it. What is that? Well, it's a transformation, and it takes some work. It's not a Dr. Feelgood process to move there, to move through the things we need to move through, but fortunately it can be done. And we're going to be there. Yes.
Yeah, we're excited. We are. There's another question.
I am excited too.
This area is really living in the question of prosperity. How do I increase my prosperity? And will you be addressing that?
Well, actually, when I talked to Reverend Rob today, one of the first things that we talked about, or one of the first workshops we're going to do, the first one will be on forgiveness on this Sunday afternoon, the 12th, at Unity in Medford. And the second workshop on Monday night will be on creating consciously, which addresses why we would set ourselves up to become blocked in terms of energy flow, whether it's cash flow, whether it's health flow, whatever it is. Abundance means total on all levels. You know, you go back to the man Yeshua, he says, I come to bring you life and bring it more abundantly. And then we have people who translate that into, and now you better fear God because God's going to get you if you don't, and you're going to be sent to someplace that isn't very nice. You know, excuse me, life abundantly. But if we buy into the other conversation, you know, one of the messages I'll deliver in that workshop on creating consciously is we live in an absolutely abundant world, and there is an abundance of everything that you choose to focus your mind on. And if you choose to focus your mind on poverty, there's an abundance of poverty. There's all kinds of it. You can have all of it you want. And you know, one of the things that we promise with these tools, if you decide to take them and use them, and you decide at some point to stop, we will absolutely refund all of your misery and trauma that you want back. You know, everybody can do what they want to do in that regard. But you know what? None of it's required. But our culture teaches us that that's just the way life is. No, that's not the way life is. That's the way we are. So, Julie, I'm excited about getting up there to Medford and Ashland and sharing the tools as far and as wide in that community as we can, and getting on that television show that we talked about on the 10th. And so June the 12th, we'll be starting at Unity in Medford with a whole series of the tools. And if you happen to be somewhere else in the country and you want to come and play, you know, jump on an airplane and schedule yourself to come for that week. We're going to go through a full week, and then on the Saturday we're going to do mind shifters and still point breathing, and then we're going to carry on the Sunday, the 12th and 19th, we'll be at Unity in Ashland and speaking at their Sunday service, and then we'll carry on with workshops into the following Wednesday. We're going to plan actually keynoting a medical conference in Florida for anybody that might want to be there. We're going to be in Hallandale Beach, Florida, at a healing center there, keynoting a medical conference, and that'll be the following weekend. So we've got lots happening, and then, of course, Heartland starts July the 8th with a 65-day intensive. 6 different modules. So we've got lots coming up. Come and play. And, of course, we're delighted and honored that we get to do this show every day so that when we are on the road, when we do leave a city, we are still accessible for questions, thoughts, answers, ideas, and support. Mind Shifters Radio, www.whyagain.com. If you have a question or a comment, our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Push 1, that'll put you in the queue, and Jeannie will say, Michael, I've got somebody who wants to talk to you. Jeannie, do we have anybody who wants to talk to us, or any comments in the chat room?
We have a comment in the chat room, and then we also have someone on the switchboard. The comment in the chat room is that it's such a challenge to help people to really see that they, and then they put in parentheses, I, are causing their own pain. I'm having a challenge allowing myself or allowing them to honor their pain, but yet shutting off their story. I should say acknowledging their illusion of the pain, but explaining effectively why it's off target to keep retelling their story. And so once you address that, then I'll turn the person on that's in the switchboard.
Cool. Well, actually, we talked to another person who called us. There's someone who lived at Heartland back about 22 years ago when we first opened, was there the first couple of years as a dentist, and he's now in Florida. But he had called us about that, and he's also a songwriter. He's called the Singing Dentist. And when he was at Heartland, he wrote a song called Stuck in My Story. One of the things the non-being mind just loves to do is to tell its story. And, you know, Dr. Tim, early in the show, and if you don't know Dr. Tim, he's a psychologist who has a support group that's been ongoing for 6 years up in Crystal Lake, just outside of Chicago. But Dr. Tim's comment earlier about, I get to be vigilant about what I allow my mind to focus on. And if I focus my mind on my story and get really good at telling my story, then that's the energy that I will expand in my world, and I'll get to live my story. There's an awesome line in the Course in Miracles, And what that line says is, problems are meaningless. But don't tell that to somebody who's in the middle of one, because we tend to be invested in our stories. You know, I'll often ask in the workshop, how many have ever been to an organ recital? And, of course, several people will put their hands up. And then I'll offer the thought, where people get together to talk about who's had the last organ, who's having the next organ removed, and mine was the worst the doctor had ever seen. And that's oftentimes people's identity is their trauma and their pain. And if that's your identity, it'll take some time to wean yourself. That's a drug. The chemistry that results in the cell from that kind of focus is a drug, and you have to break the habit. It's no different than alcohol, cocaine, methamphetamines. In fact, perhaps more powerful because it's free. You don't have to pay for it. At least you don't have to pay money for it. You get to pay in a lot of other ways. And the supplier's internal. Somebody who says, okay, I'm going to get off the alcohol habit, can say, all right, I'm just not going back to the liquor store. And then in their weak moments, it's not there for them to do. But to be committed, if you use the drug of self-pity, of victimhood, of poor me, of look what happened to me, I'm really not interested in what happened to you. What I'm interested in is who you are. And here's what I know about you. When you came out of the womb, somebody took you in their hands and said, what an awesome presence of love. And you know what? Whatever's happened to you has never touched that love. That love is still fully intact. If you are 89 years of age and you haven't felt the presence of that love since you were 2, that love is still absolutely, totally, completely, 100% intact. That is, you are. And all the rest of it is your stuff. Now, if your physiology is filled with that stuff because that's your generational and your cultural training, then there's going to be some work to do. You're going to get in there and you're going to shovel that stuff out. But it's never touched you. Does that adequately address that question, Jeannie?
I believe it does. And so now we have area code 954. You're on the air. Who do we have and where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Nene Ortega.
Oh, we've missed you the last couple of weeks, Nene. How are you?
Great, blessed and dandy.
Awesome. For those who haven't been on the show when Nene's been on before, she came to stuff we did in Fort Lauderdale back in January, and this woman dug in so deeply to doing her work. And we are so appreciative of the Spanish translation work that you've done to get this into Spanish and take it to the Spanish community. Thank you for that. So what's on your mind today, Nene?
Thank you, Mike, and I'm very happy to be back on air. I know I've been technology challenged a little bit. My PC broke and, certain things, but I'm back. And I have something very interesting to share about the tools and the immediate of the thoughts, the immediate change, how it impacts immediately.
Right.
Because I do my ballroom dancing, I tango, and people are looking at me, and this lady in particular came and said, Nene, you're radiant. I've seen your change. What is that you're doing? So I introduced her to the work, and she said, I'm going to take you out for dinner, and I need to talk because, I broke up with my boyfriend, blah, blah. And so I know him because he's also from the same ballroom and the dancing. So it was familiar to me. I said, okay, fine. So I introduced her to her in a dinner, and little by little I gave her the management, the reality management, and
right.
It was very interesting. Immediately she started feeling a little bit more that everything made sense to her. So that night she called me and she said, Nene, I'm already read half the book. This is fantastic. I want more. So I saw her a couple of days later, and we did a workshop together, and then I introduced her to the responsible communication.
Right.
And I'm telling her that my relationships have changed. I have new friends. I have a lot of people that I want to heal. And even this person that I was dating, he's treating me in such respect and appreciation never before, even though we're not really dating, but whenever we see each other at the ballroom or we dance or we share something, there is a love and appreciation that was never before, because before we're always in a ring, in a boxing ring.
Right.
So she invites me to her house, and I said, that this is what's happening to me, and the responsible communication is very powerful. So we start doing this, and we are sitting next to each other and talking about her ex and my ex, who are of the same dancing arena. He calls, her ex-boyfriend calls, and she says, no, I'm very busy, and we continue doing the communication, writing down the things. A minute and a half later, my ex calls. Immediately, we were talking about this. She was telling me what happened. We're going through the responsible communication, and both people call 1 minute and a half difference.
Yes, that's pretty typical.
She said, if I had any doubts of Ruja da Kusha, we did a fabulous, another worksheet, fabulous, and she felt so empowered. And she's very happy because now she's able and empowered to talk to the guy and, explain, and then it's going to be a great healing for that relationship, because that's what I've been experiencing, and everybody that has engaged in this wonderful process that is so easy, practical, and effective. So I thought it was a very funny story and a very true.
So you've shared before the impact on your relationship, and thank you for sharing it again, and that it's still moving forward. There's another area of your life that was impacted powerfully when you started to use the tools, and that was in your business world. Would you share a little bit about that, just so people, if they're not sure the different areas this might apply, and Nene was totally, completely, 100% new to any of this thinking the 1st of January. We actually spoke, I think it was the 2nd of January that we spoke in a place called CFL in Fort Lauderdale. And you just hung in there the whole 3 months that we were in Florida. You were at just about every workshop we did and did the work. Share what happened in your business life.
Can I jump in just for one, Nene? Also include, you had shared at one of the workshops about how you and another friend, you were both together like at almost all of the workshops and everything, but that you were really digging in and doing things seriously, how many worksheets a day and everything, and your friend wasn't, and how you saw such a difference, and so you had emphasized that you realized that the quality or quantity of the results that you saw was also in comparison to the work that you were putting into it. And while you're talking, just to let everybody know, my computer just blue screened, so I can't chat in the chat room or turn anybody else on the switchboard till my computer comes back up. So don't think I'm ignoring you in here. Go for it, Nene.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, with all my heart. Yeah, I remember going with a group. There were 4 of us, and I did so intense, and I still do very intensively. There are nights that I go to bed 1 in the morning. I do 3, 4 worksheets, and I did change the comparison of my life has changed with my daughter, my daughter's health, her professional life is improving. My life is improving also in all the aspects, and people see me with this shining aura, so noticeable. And the other ladies that did not continue, like Mike says, they're still hanging up with their stories. Still the same. And I'm like, with a rocket that's going speed. And one of the workshops, this about the purpose in life. I remember writing down about me in the media and my videos, and having my vision was to use all my creative, artistic talents and my communication skills with the languages and being on camera, because I love that. I'm very good at it. and using this to also spread the word, spread the tools, and create more peace and intelligence, people engaging in their own intelligence. And as a matter of fact, I found a TV show, and I went there even though I was out of the age range, the limits that they were looking for. I went there, they interviewed me 3 times. I got the job as producer first, and then I could participate in certain segments that I consider important. And then
you were too young.
One day...
You were too young
too
for
old. According to whatever they wanted, I was too old. But the person who interviewed me said, you are so skilled, and you have this magic something about you, and I want you to contribute. I said, okay, fine. So I got my job, and then a journalist came from California, and she saw me working, on the TV setting and doing my job, and then she asked me, have you been behind camera? I said, of course. So I hear my big resume and my pictures and interviews and TV channels and my YouTube dancing tips. And then she told the director she has to be in the show. She is the one who has to be in the show. So now it's like that's my show. I'm producing it, and I'm now in the show. I'm like the main character.
Awesome. Congratulations, Renee.
And as a matter of fact, we are recording this week, and one of the scenes, one of the segments is about love relationships. Is this a boxing ring or a healing nest of love to grow? That's one of my segments.
Renee, that is so awesome. And, folks who are listening, I remember Renee having this conversation about what she wanted to do as she was working away at a beauty office or a business where they did, hair and facials and all that sort of thing. And that's what you were doing, and you were having this conversation. And the minute you tapped into that Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment workshop, you did take off like a rocket, and you said, this is what I'm going to create, and here you are doing it. And we need to have a conversation because one of the things that we want to do is to create some Spanish telenovelas that present healing instead of the telenovelas that spread around the globe based in hostility and fear and drama and trauma. So we want your help on that. We want to literally start writing telenovelas based in the tools. If for those who aren't familiar with that term, the telenovela is something that started in Spain, and it's a television show. Basically, it's a Spanish soap opera.
Soap opera.
And women throughout the Spanish community, and I actually did some research. I was actually writing up a proposal for doing this, and did some research. And these telenovelas spread to places like Algeria and Israel and Africa and like all kinds of different countries, Germany, where these women are focusing on these drama and trauma stories, and then of course, wondering why one's life ends up looking like a soap opera. If one focuses their minds there, it's really not a big stretch to understand it. And so we want to create some telenovelas that demonstrate, yes, the conflict that happens in a relationship, and then the presentation of the tools and the healing process. So that we
So I'm having my girls, the ladies that work with me, I'm having them reading the book, so they can, comment all that. And then the director, he was very stressed the other day, and I said, what's the matter? And he said, this is not going, and I want this to happen. And I said, well, you better cancel that goal. And then I had everybody canceling goals, and he turned and looked at me and pointed with his finger, and he said, you got to do a segment on that. You have to do it. I said, of course.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Nene, we're down to 60 seconds. We'd love to hear from you. Please keep tapping in regularly and call us and let us know how it's progressing. And we'll have to have a conversation about these telenovelas that we want to start to create for the Spanish.
Spanish world. Everybody. Bye.
All right. Blessings. We love you. Jeannie, any last-minute comments in the chat room? Or
my computer's still trying to repair itself, so I have no idea. I apologize for anybody that may have gotten left out for the last few minutes, but call back in tomorrow, tap back in.
Okay, well, please take the tools, go to www.whyagain.com, check out our schedule within the next day or so for our time up in Oregon, and you have the best year yet of your eternal life. That's what these tools are made for. Blessings.